morning. How are we all? Welcome to Friday. It's come around quick again, and welcome to Phyllis and the Fossil Finders, Chapter 3. So we're still really no further forward as to what the bright light and the glowing rocks are, but hopefully we're going to find out today. So we're going to get straight on into Chapter 3, and we've got lots of things to think about whilst we're reading. So the first one is, who is Mary Anning? Now, I know I can see in the chat there are people here that have done a live lesson with me before on Mary Anning, so I'm sure that you will know who Mary Anning is. But do we hear about her in the book? And the next question is, what does the creature look like? Well, I feel like I've given it away a little bit now of what's going to happen, but maybe we meet some sort of creature. What does the creature look like? And then finally, what options do the children have at the end of the chapter? So those are the things, if you like to think about listening out for things as you're reading. Obviously, if you like to doodle while you're reading or draw while you're reading, then or get up and move while I'm reading, then that's great. If you like to snuggle up with a blanket, then that's also great. Do it, whatever works for you, but we're going to be reading chapter 3. And thank you, I am good. So thank you for asking how I am too. So hello to everybody. I can see some Spanish in the chat as well, which is pretty epic, because it shows that you're coming to more than one live lesson, which is amazing. Right, let's get into chapter 3, because I want to find out what this creature looks like, and make sure we're doing lots of listening and we're not talking about random stuff in the chat. Okay, chapter 3. Jacob had found many tiny fossils before, living as they did in a place where it was so common for them to be uncovered by the elements. However, those were usually just small ammonites or belemnites. His favourite was a perfectly spiralling mollusk shell that sat on the bottom shelf in his den. All of his previous discoveries were no bigger than the palm of his hand. He had dreamt of finding something greater, like the famous fossilist Mary Anning had. She had lived on the same stretch of coast 200 years ago. He loved reading about her life and work. What appeared before them right now, though, was way more incredible than anything Mary had ever discovered. Maybe more incredible than anyone had ever discovered. This was not just a tooth or a bone, nor was it an impression in a rock or some hard-to-identify remains. One half of the now broken rock lay on the ground like a cracked Easter egg. Pressed into the inside of the other half was the full skeleton of some kind of ancient creature. For a moment, Jacob, Nicatia and Gabby stood and stared. Behind them, Faisal inched slowly backwards. What is that? He gasped, peering over the shoulders of his friends. The skull atop the skeleton was about the size of a dog's head. Instead of a snout, however, it looked like it had a large, flat beak. Is it real? Asked Gabby. A few thick, short neck bones connected the creature's head to its body. A full ribcage of bones was curving outwards from the stone. Rising above were longer, thinner bones, which looked like they could have formed wings in full flight. I've never seen anything like it, said Nicatia. Her eyes followed the skeleton along to the tip of its long raptor-like tail. Two short legs stuck out below the body, as if it had frozen in time while out for a walk. The vibrating sound had not gone away. Jacob wanted to bang his head inside his own head to stop it buzzing inside him. The purple glow returned to a shroud of mist. It seemed to be growing thicker, and soon they were peering through a dense fog. The burning smell suddenly seemed stronger too, as though they were breathing in toxic fumes. Guys, Jacob coughed, there's something happening. Faisal stepped further back. Nicatia and Gabby held on to each other. Jacob was frozen with fear, but at the same time fascinated and intrigued enough to want a closer look. He squinted through the swirling purple mist. Am I going crazy? Or is that thing moving? Asked Faisal. There was a slight tremble in his voice. It's moving, Jacob confirmed, mesmerised. He covered his nose and mouth to keep out the worsening stench. It was like a triple dose of the stink bombs from the joke shop in town. The haze surrounding the rock made it hard to see clearly at first, but then it began to thin and clear. At first, the creature was prying its head away from the rock. Not just a skull anymore, but a head. It was furry, or perhaps feathery. It blinked one golf ball eye and slowly stretched open its beak in a wide yawn. Soon the entire body was wriggling free from where it had been encased. Where the ribs had already been sticking out from the rock, the body now seemed even bulkier. A furry outer layer crept over the bones as they watched. One bony wing, now with fleshy skin stretched across it, popped free from the rock, and then a second wing, last with a tail, legs and feet. The creature peeled itself away from its stone shell. Gradually it had become unstuck. Gradually it had become an actual creature again. It placed one clawed foot forward onto the rocky ground, and then the other, and then fell in a clumsy heap, beak first, onto the sand. Basil let out a squeal. Gabby let out a little snort of laughter at the strange sight. The creature gave a squawk, looked at the four humans, and blinked its bulgy eyes. O-M-G, breathed Gabby. This is amazing! Did that really just happen? Did you not see that? We've set it free from the rock, said Nicatia. I think we brought the fossil back to life, suggested Faisal. This is even cooler than anything on Raider's Peril. Maybe it was to do with the storm, Gabby offered. Maybe the lightning strike has somehow caused this. Caused what, though? Asked Jacob. What exactly has happened here? I don't understand. This thing looks prehistoric, and now it's walking around in front of us. I don't know about walking. Seems it can barely stand up. Basil was right. The creature shifted its weight awkwardly from one clawed foot to the other. Each time it seemed ready to topple over. It turned and looked at the assembled group, tilting its head one way and then the other. Feathery tufts jutted from the back of its neck. It looked confused. After a little shuffling, it plonked itself down on the sand. Jacob wondered if it had just got tired of trying to stay upright. It almost gave a sigh as it sagged to the floor and its neck drooped. Maybe it's just a baby, if it can't walk properly. Look, it has cute fluffy tufts on the front like a baby penguin. Do you think it's friendly? Nicatia pondered aloud. I don't think it has the energy to attack us, even if it wanted to. I'm going to try stroking it, said Gabby. Be careful, warned Jacob. She crept cautiously towards it. The creature observed her warily. When she was close enough, she reached out her hand in slow motion. The whole time she was pursing her lips and making soft cooing sounds. With her first touch, the creature jerked its head a little. Gabby persevered and stroked the back of its neck. After a few seconds, the creature angled its head towards her and produced a throaty warbling sound. Jacob thought that it sounded like a cat purring. I think it likes you, he said, before noticing the rock behind. Whoa! It's left a fossilised impression behind. The inside of the boulder now contained a perfectly preserved mould of the creature's skeleton, as though it had been pressed into modelling clay. You must know what type of creature it is, Jay. Don't you always know about this kind of thing? Asked Faisal. Not this. This is different to anything else ever. It's a bit like an Archeornis. Can't pronounce the dinosaurs. An Archeornis, but the legs are too short. It's similar to a Gemini raptor, but with more of a beak. It's like a dodo's prehistoric cousin or something. I thought Mrs. Green said that dodos were only ever found on some faraway island before they became extinct, Nicatia said. I'm not saying it is a dodo. Anyway, they were alive way more recently than dinosaurs. and they are not thought to be any known similar-looking creature, Jacob replied. Yet here we are, said Faisal, gesturing towards the waddling, wobbling, warbling oddity in front of them. The creature cocked its head and squawked as if in some kind of agreement. So, what do we do with it? Should we just leave it here? Said Nacacia. No, it may not survive. Let's keep it as a pet, Gabby blurted out. Don't be daft, said Faisal. Where would it live? How would you look after it? There's no way my dad would let me bring it into the house. I don't think any of us can keep it, said Jacob solemnly. Maybe we should report it to the RSPCA. Well, what would they do? Asked Gabby. It's not hurt or in danger, and that might draw too much attention to it. Yeah, imagine what old Mr. Pennicott would say. He'd love to get his hands on it, said Nacacia darkly. He'd want it for the museum for sure, probably put it in a glass case. More like skin it alive, said Faisal. I'm telling you, there's no way it's going in that weird museum. Then I guess we need another plan, said Nacacia. The creature sat comfortably on the ground between them, taking in its new surroundings. It pecked at the sand, cocked its head at the seagulls flying above, and blinked brightly up at them all. Well, we now know what the creature is. So, and what the creature looks like. So how do they describe it? They describe it as being a bit like a dodo, don't they? But it's obviously not a dodo. So here is a picture of what the author thinks that it should look like, but obviously that's entirely up to you as to what you think. Bye! I haven't even finished yet. Don't need to go yet. Yeah, this is what the author thinks it looks like. But you have some other ideas of what you think it actually looks like. So why do they think this is not a dodo? So obviously that's the first question to think of, because it does look a little bit like the dodo. Why does Nacacia think the creature's young? And does the creature seem dangerous? And how can you tell? So it does look a bit like a dodo, but it's obviously not a dodo, because it's obviously from a different time period. So it does look a little bit different. Yeah, because it's extinct. Although dodos are extinct, but it looks like definitely it's from a different time period. And how does Nacacia think the creature is young? How does the creature behave? So it's small, absolutely. It's got these really tufty feathers, doesn't it, on its front, a bit like a baby penguin. And also, it's very doddery on its feet. So it seems to keep slumping in the sand, doesn't it? So it's very kind of seems very young. It doesn't seem to walk. Yeah, it can't stand up properly. Absolutely. And how does the creature seem dangerous? Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't hurt them when it's in their sight. Yeah, it's wobbly. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Jack. It doesn't seem dangerous, and they manage to stroke it, and it produces this like almost purring sound. So quite exciting. But what are they going to do about it? So there's lots of things they talk about. Do they report it to the warbling? It was warbling. Do they report it to the RSPCA? Do they keep it as a pet? Do they leave it on its own? What do they do? What would you do? This sounds like an epic thing to happen. What would you do if you found it? What would you do? Now, I don't think I could keep it as a pet, because I think my dog would try and eat it, or one of my dogs would try and eat it. What would you do? Would you keep it? Something to really think about. Some people are starting to say they'd keep it. So lots of you would keep it. Take it home. Yes, interesting to see what they will do with it, isn't it? And also how it's going to behave, because it obviously is a wild creature, and probably your grown-ups, if you brought a baby penguin home, probably wouldn't be very best pleased. I'm sure if you brought a baby dinosaur home, would probably be less pleased. But it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because if it come back from life in the periods of the dinosaurs, no one would have ever seen it. Do you put it in a zoo? It's really tricky, isn't it? So yeah, what would happen if you bumped into a person that wanted to have it to make lots of money and things like that? So yeah, it would be tricky. But how are you going to hide it? Something for you to think about. So don't forget, there's lots of activities that you can do at the end of this session. Now, I totally messed up the Anchionis, despite the fact I practiced it, and the Gemini raptor. So they were both birds that were talked about in the book, the Anchionis and the Gemini raptor. So maybe research some of those two birds and come up with some interesting phrases to describe them. And then I'd really like you to come up with your own idea of what you think the creature looks like, what colour they are. Do they have fur or do they have feathers? Because Jacob isn't quite sure. Lots of you saying you'd hide it in your shed. And then imagine the mysterious creature could talk. What might the conversation be when it comes back to life? If they could actually, if it was a bit of a different story, and that there was lots of dialogue between the bird or the dinosaur and the children. What do you think the conversation would be like? So lots of activities to do. Don't forget to go share them over in our Facebook page if you do any of them. I loved seeing the costumes that you did for Faisal, so that he could have a proper dinosaur costume. I love seeing those that are shared. But yeah, any of those activities, do go and share them over in our Facebook group. And I will see you next Friday for chapter 4. So have a lovely week, and I'll see you soon.